From the City of Angels, you're listening to the James Salazar Media Podcast. On this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about the major news stories of the week. So let me strike the music, and I'll meet you on the other side.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Say hello to my little friend.
No, I am your father.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
And welcome to the James Salazar Media Podcast, where you get your weekly dose of pop culture, politics, and futurism. I am the formerly mentioned your host, James Salazar, a.k.a. the media, the real media, the new media. If you're wondering why I call myself the media, it's because most of the media today is opinionated. It's not real news. It's not real journalism. It's a bunch of gotcha questions, a bunch of people giving their opinions, stirring and misrepresenting what people are saying to fit a narrative. Well, if they can be opinionated, I could be opinionated, and my opinion is just as good as theirs. So, let me give my opinionated news and call myself the media. It's also one of my nicknames for the live podcast and my stage name for a rock band called Murder of Crows. But I'm not going to talk about that right now. Not going to talk about that right now. But that's coming. Hold your horses. Hold on to your hats and glasses, because that's coming. A lot of stuff in the news. A lot of stuff in the news. And I said that again because I'm trying to think of what to say. No, I'm not. Rush Limbaugh, famed conservative talk radio host, conservative talk radio host. He pretty much created the medium of conservative talk radio. And he was the most listened to talk show or radio program in the nation at one time. He died from cancer. And let me say this about Rush. I used to listen to Rush a lot in the 90s. Late 90s, that is. When I used to be I've always listened to him, but I listened to him heavily when I was street sweeping for the city of Ontario and Monrovia, California. And I would listen to him religiously. I would listen to Howard Stern in the morning, and then I would switch over at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time and listen to Rush Limbaugh. And pretty much Rush Limbaugh, the conservative parts of me were informed by him. His brash style of conservatism, in your face, unapologetic, I admired a lot, especially because back then, the news was 99% liberal. And there was no conservative medium for anybody up until Rush Limbaugh came on the scene. Now, during the Reagan years, there was something called the Fairness Doctrine, where you had to give the opposing side of an argument. If you're going to be someone on the radio that dabbles in politics, called a Fairness Doctrine, you must give the other side. And this was made to shut down conservatives because the people who wrote those laws were liberals. Ronald Reagan gets rid of that law, opens the door for Rush Limbaugh as the only alternative at the time to conservative mindsets, conservative beliefs and ideologies. you couldn't get it anywhere else up until then. And he laid the path for people like Ben Shapiro, Hannity, Fox News. There would be no Hannity. There would be no Fox News. There would be no Michael Medved, Dennis Prager. You go down the list without Rush opening up that door. And Rush was very fun to listen to. He was very funny. He made jokes. He would use absurdity to prove a point, but sometimes at the expense of certain marginalized groups. But he was trying to prove a point. He was trying to get to the point that leftism can only thrive, can only gain power if you are a victim. Because victimology has equity. And equity gets people to move in your direction. So there's an industry of victimization that leftists like to deal in. And he pointed those out with jokes, with absurd points to get it across. And a lot what Rush said is very prophetic, that he knew that if we allow people to be overly offended, easily triggered, it would end up with censorship. This was his whole point. And like a prophet, not saying he was a prophet, we have this cancel culture that is a direct result of believing in political correctness, truths that are too hard to say. Now we're to the point where you can't even say anything and you'll be canceled and your livelihood destroyed. Let me tell you a couple of things that I've learned from Rush Limbaugh when I was listening to him. That the bigger the government, the smaller the people. Number two, that you know what's best for your life way more than some legislator in Washington, D.C. And seeing everything through the lens of race will only divide us. As conservatives, he would say, we see people. Liberals see color. And that's all they want you to make every political move based on color, not based on that we are all Americans. I have a saying. How can I be a minority? Because, I'm Hispanic. How can I be a minority when I am 100% American? The Constitution of the United States says I'm just as American as someone who is or has family since the Revolution of the United States. That I am a partaker of the American dream just as anybody else. I have never, ever needed someone to believe like me, to think like me, to talk like me, or to like me, to feel free in this country. What they believe about me, I don't give a fuck, and it's none of my business. As long as they don't stand in my way, they can go kick rocks. I don't fear the whitey on every corner trying to pull me down. In fact, most of the negative people I ever met were in my own race. You don't need to be white and racist to try to pull someone down and try to stomp on their dreams. Try to tell them that things are not possible. People, it's not a racial thing. It's a human thing. And now let me tell you, there's a big problem in this society of people wanting to be informed by somebody else and not informing themselves, not forming their own opinion, but looking for some radio host, some TV host on what to think. And I will say, when it comes to Rush Limbaugh, I would say listen to his shows, and you be the judge. I have no doubt that if you listen with an open mind and let his own words inform you about himself, I have no doubt you're going to come to the right conclusion. Now, let's transition to Gina Carano. If you do not know what happened to Gina Carano, she made a post on Twitter, and there was an analogy made, and she got kicked off The Mandalorian and any other Star Wars show, and she was fired by Disney. Now, my initial reaction when this happened was like, I get her point. She may be right. She may have made probably not the best comparison, but at the end of the day, she should have known better that we're in a cancel culture. And I said that on the last podcast, and it didn't sit well with me. It was like a throwing in the white flag on this certain subject. And I was talking to my friend about it, and he says, we just live in this world now, and he was right. But there's still a choice in that. And as I look back at what she said, and let's read what she said and see if it does not have merit and was it anti-Semitic. He says, Jews were beaten in the streets by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors. Oh, I'm sorry. Jews were beaten in the street, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children, because history is edited. Most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views? Now that I analyze what she said and not dismiss it because we live in a cancel culture, what she said was not anti-Semitic. She was talking about when you condemn a certain group of people because of the political views, race, or religion, the society picks it up. The society who concurs with your thought find it a little bit easier to bully, to discriminate, to cancel someone who does not believe like you are. And what this was a sensitive, she hit a nerve of, for the last 4 years, people calling Donald Trump fascist. With very little proof at all. And then you have social media, those left of center, news sources and opinionated programs trying to link all Trump voters and all conservatives and Republicans to the very few people who rioted at the Capitol, trying to link them together, trying to say that all 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump are traitors and complicit in the riot. You just gave a license to discriminate against 75 million people. You gave people a moral high ground to be bigoted based on political views. And I said this before, it is a little good that the government protects freedom of speech if the citizens don't. If you want to destroy people, and if you want to take down people and to destroy their livelihood, not because they said something wrong, but because they believe something different than you do. What she was getting at, she didn't say anything racist. She didn't say anything anti-Semitic. What she was saying, that the people who've been calling Donald Trump fascist for the last 4 years are now acting fascist themselves, and it hit a nerve that they are being totalitarian. They are being fascist by canceling people, making free speech no longer free, but there's a punishment given by the citizens upon people for saying something they don't like. A truth that is too hurtful to say. And ironically, that they proved their point. By canceling her, they legitimized her point. Well, she has a new job. She got picked up by, Ben Shapiro's company called The Daily Wire. They make movies now. They have a movie called Run, Hide, Fight. Was their very first movie, and they offered Gina Carano a job for her to act and produce in their next movie. And now she is in a company where she does not have to hide who she is, doesn't need to worry about being canceled for giving her opinion. And this is the way it's going to have to be. There has to be alternatives after a while. And here's a hard thing. I love Star Wars. I love it. It's one of my favorite franchises. But the only way cancel culture is going to stop if you stop watching Star Wars. And it's so sad that this happened. Look at, and we know she was not canceled because of what she wrote. She's canceled because she's conservative, because the Washington Post said they were looking for a reason to cancel her. And she gave them that reason. And she has to take that too, that her timing was pretty bad if she wanted to stay on Star Wars. Because we know that Pedro Pascal, he did the exact same thing, made a bigger comparison to Nazi Germany and the United States, using fake pictures and saying it was Americans when they're really Palestinians, and Disney didn't do anything about it. We know that James Gunn is now doing the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he has a history of accusations of sexual harassment. Disney didn't care about that. So we can conclude about what they do let go, that they were going after her because she was a conservative, and they've been trying to get rid of her, looking for reasons to get rid of her for a while. Ben Shapiro and his company took advantage to get an A-list actor and get her on his productions, and she's going to have basically her own movie, and she can produce it. But it's imperative, and I say it's imperative that this movie is good. Now, I know that Ben Shapiro knows what good movies are, because I know he critiques movies, and he is also a Star Wars lover and Star Trek lover, and likes action movies like we all do. And he does not want to do any film that is preachy of conservative value. He just wants to make good films that don't preach wokeness. Because in everyday's lives, we're only confronted with wokeness when you turn on the media, when you turn on your TV, when you turn on your computer. Other than that, people just live normal lives. And that's the story he wants to tell. I was watching The Good Doctor last night. And The Good Doctor, it's a fun show. It's about a guy who has autism, but he's a pretty brilliant doctor. He makes him find medical mysteries. But they sort of stepped away from that a little bit. I don't know why, but that's another critique. And this African-American lady comes in, and she's just ultra woke, just looking for racism, touting statistics about how black people are never given medicine to cure their pain because they have a prejudice of doctors thinking they're going to be addicted to it. And that might be true, but it takes you out of the story when she starts preaching in every scene, giving the woke list of things that you need to understand. And it's just bad storytelling. There's better ways to do it. I don't want to be preached in every program. I want to watch a story. Unless I go there for that story, and I want to see that story. Like, there's plenty of Black History Month movies right now that I'm going to watch, and I know what they entail, and I'm going there to see it. And I don't mind woke things in TV shows either. It's just when there is slight and subtle nudges towards wokeness that I can assimilate slowly within a good story, and then there's hitting you over the head with a hammer every scene. And that's not what the show is for. That's not why I go there. I go watch The Good Doctor to see what mysteries will this autistic doctor solve. That's what I go there for. And there's a lot of things that are said that doesn't tell the whole story, you know. A plus B equals C. And often in those shows that show wakeness, you only see A. You're only going to see A and say, okay, there's A. Okay, don't worry about B and C and what it equals or why that might happen. It's just know that it is happening. And those who don't want to acknowledge it's happening are on the wrong side of things. It's not that we don't want to acknowledge things that are not happening. It's that we come to different conclusions. And depending upon the writer, you're not going to get those conclusions. You're just not. Well, the Daily Wire is going to sort of, their foray into making movies. And they're not going to be overly conservative. They're not going to be overly preachy. He stated as much. He thinks any movie where their focus is their political ideologies, they usually suck. But if you can tell a great story and slowly implement these ideas, like The Black Panther was a great movie. It talked about the injustices of black people and what they had to endure. And what if they had the power to stop it and they didn't? And the ramifications of that idea. I am engulfed in this idea that there was a certain sect of black people who had the power to stop slavery but didn't. And the ramifications of that. And as I realize the ramifications of that thing, I am getting into the mentality of what it was for those people to be in that situation altogether. That's great storytelling. That's great writing. I would say the Black Panther movie is just as woke as any other movie, but I didn't feel it. Didn't feel that way. It felt like I was on a great ride with a great story, and that's how it should be done. And I hope Ben Shapiro can give some conservative ideals, libertarian ideals through his movies, done just as good. I hope. So, good for Gina Carano. Her last statement was, they can't cancel us if we don't let them. And she's right. There has to be other mediums for conservative actors. I mean, it's true. I'm an opera singer, and I've heard opera directors say, I will not cast or work with any Republican or conservative. And I was like, I better shut my mouth because I really wanted the role. I'm not going to let them know. I'm not going to be overly announcing my political views. And, you know, I have to test the water with certain individuals. And of course, people live in a vacuum and they think that the whole world's liberal, but there's a lot more conservatives that just afraid to speak up. So, good for Ben Shapiro, good for Gina Carano, and it is a stake in the heart, not stake in the heart, but maybe stake in the side or stake in the foot into this cancel culture that if people who are running things don't care what people don't like, and Ben Shapiro's famous line, people don't care about your feelings, facts don't care about your feelings. These are the people who need to be running production companies because the majority of the people want to see it. And most often, 99% of the time, it's the people who don't watch who are complaining and asking for people to be canceled. I have no doubt that the majority of Star Wars fans did not want Gina Carano to be canceled for what she said. Get it straight. Get it straight. Cancel culture is fascism. Totalitarian, it is McCarthyism. And it needs to stop. And most often people don't get it until they're canceled. God damn, Texas is freezing. Hey, all you Californians who went to Texas, how's that working out for you now? Yeah, you forgot why you came to California, didn't you? Didn't you, huh? When your ass is freezing and your car won't turn over and you're under 20 feet of snow, you forgot, huh? It was all good. And let me tell you something, I get it. We have an asshole for a governor who does not obey the science. His knee-jerk reaction is to shut everything down when the data is clear that shops and restaurants are not the major culprits of spreading the transmission of COVID-19. In fact, it was probably better for everybody to go to a restaurant than eat at home. That probably would have been a more logical and scientific way to deal with the data, because restaurants have to keep their shit clean. They got to wipe the tables. They got to clean the cups. But when your ass is at home and you got to meet for dinner, you're hosing everybody up while you're talking about your day, slopping in all your borscht. The borscht, what the fuck is borscht? Salad or stew or chicken leg, whatever you fucking eat in your house. I'm telling you, that dude needs to go. But there's a cold snap, and so cold that I know both sides are at each other's throat politically, saying you got jacked because you rely on fossil fuel, and the other side is like, no, we are less on fossil fuel, and that's why we got jacked. And we are too much on alternative energies. So they're fighting over this. They got this line going and they're pushing back and forth. They're doing tug of war and see who will win. But the fact of the matter is, and that's on the more libertarian conservative side, is that this happened in 1980s, in a year in, I think it was 83. And they handled it very well. And they were not on renewable energies. They were 100% on coal and gas. Now they're less, and this is what happens. Those turbines that turn things, they froze. That's it. Along with everything else. And this is the stupid thing about politics. The fact of the matter is, it is so cold, it doesn't matter what kind of energy you had, you were going to get screwed. You weren't going to be ready. No one predicted it. And the best thing that people do is point fingers. But there's a third party that both sides can point to. There's I think a company that harnesses the energy made by gas and coal and wind, that they were not prepared. And I'm pretty sure all fingers are going to point to them as a fault, and they're going to be gone. Because if the Republicans and the Democrats can find a third party to blame, that's what they're going to do. So it's incredible. A lot of people have died, and it's completely sad. And hearts go out to them. Some might want to move back to California after this. Who knows? But sometimes nature has its own plans. And if you're not ready, it suffers no fools. In all fairness to Texas, if this happened in California, twice as many people would die. Maybe like 100 times more people would die. We would be fucked. We have no contingencies on to deal with that type of cold where our pipes are freezing over. Forget about it. Forget about it. We wouldn't know what to do. People would freeze in their houses. People would be starving, and no one would be prepared. It would be worse in Texas. That's all I'm saying. Now, Ted Cruz decided to go to Cancun while this was happening. Not a good look. Not like he can do anything for it. I mean, people are just picking on him at this point because his involvement in the impeachment trial. I mean, in the Capitol riots. And this was a bad move. He came back and said he was sorry about it. But I don't know what he could have done. He can't do anything. But overall, politically, the optics of it were pretty bad. And he made a mistake. But I personally don't think he's going to be hired again. I think Republicans are going to vote in somebody else. He is toxic right now, and I don't think especially after this, he sort of ignored people's criticism over the Capitol riots, but this doesn't look good. He fucked up. You fucked up, Ted. Lying Ted. Whatever. So I don't think it's going to fare well for him during his election. I think conservatives in that state know they can put in someone who is less polarizing at this point. He's almost as polarizing as Donald Trump at this point. I don't think he'll stay that way, but at this point, making that move was bad. Not bad in reality. Not like he could have done a damn thing and stopped the cold from happening. It's just a political move. As a political move, the optics were terrible. To leave Texas during a cold front to go to Cancun. And let's just say this. I don't know if it's hypocrisy. It just looks bad because he's not someone who says we should shut down. No one should go anywhere. Everybody should quarantine. He's not that guy. He's the guy that says everybody should open up. We should bring back the economy. People should be able to spend their money and go on vacations. He's that guy. He's not doing hypocrisy. That's other people. The people who say everything needs to be shut down, no one should go anywhere, and when they do, that's hypocrisy. Like Nancy Pelosi going into the hair salon. Like Gavin Newsom going into the restaurant. And a couple of other people, I don't even know, have done that, who've said, you shouldn't do this, and then they went to go do it. Ted Cruz has been very clear that we shouldn't open up and everybody should get back to life. So it's not hypocrisy. It's just a bad look. It's just a bad look, especially after that faux pas he made during the riots, making people believe that there was a chance that Mike Pence would overturn the election. Well, there was no chance, no constitutional path for that to happen, and he knew it. But he was playing politics, and a riot happened. His star is tarnished. It doesn't look, though I don't believe he incited a riot. But to say that what they said did not play a part would be naive, would be very naive. But it's a stain on his position as a senator, and I don't think he can survive the next election. My personal opinion. So there, impeachment. The impeachment didn't happen. What a surprise! Could have told you that. They didn't even bring up any evidence. They said, why bother? No one's going to vote for it. Then why'd you do it? They didn't want Donald Trump to be impeached. They don't want a citizen to be impeached, because that's what you are when you're no longer president. You become a citizen. And we don't want any citizen being impeached, because every other citizen could be impeached. And Barack Obama can be impeached. So they never wanted this. It was just a show. They could have very much created a law that said, hey, Donald Trump can no longer run for presidency. It would have passed the House, ran by Democrats. It would have passed the Senate, ran by Democrats. Would have passed the presidency, ran by a Democrat. And that would be it. Why do you think they didn't do that? Why do you think they took the path of most resistance? Because they didn't want it to happen. And they didn't take the path of least resistance, making a law, because they know that the Republicans would then come back with their own law and try to get somebody who they don't like or someone who they do like. This is a sword that cuts both ways. Let me explain it in a way that you'll understand. Let's say the Republicans take the House and the Senate in 2 years, and then the next, and then at the end of the 4 years, they are able to put in a new president. And then Michelle Obama wants to run in the next 4 years, and maybe there's something weird in her past, questionable. The Republicans go up and decide to create a law that doesn't allow Michelle Obama to run for office. Gets past the Senate, gets past the House, signed by the president, and now Michelle Obama cannot run for office. So they knew that kind of mentality can happen if they do it. If they decided to write a law that says Donald Trump cannot become president, cannot run for president again, it's a sword that cuts both ways. It can come back on them. So therefore, they didn't do it. They did impeachment because they knew it wouldn't work. They just did it for their base, because the base was all hyped. And I mean, I tell you, so many friends and colleagues were like really believing that this was going to happen, that it was possible. They were trying to evict a tenant that's already out of the apartment. Silliness. Immigration's back in the storyline. 75,000 people try to come through the borders in the month of January. And Joe Biden's open policy on immigration right now seems very unwise, especially in this economy that's now taking a downturn. I mean, right now, and he's pretty much suggesting full amnesty, or all the privileges of the amnesty without giving them citizenship. We have about 20,000 undocumented illegal aliens, whatever word you want to use. And it's his executive order. He pretty much undermines all legal immigration by just having anybody who comes over illegally have the same rights and privileges as people who come over legally. So that's a big undermine. And I don't know how the American people are able to, one of the things he's implemented that someone who is undocumented can get a job in the United States when we're barely being able to give jobs to Americans. That there will be an influx. And they're not going to go to the rich communities. You think they're going to go to Joe Biden's community? No, they're going to go and come into the poor communities and oversaturate and overwhelm those cities. Like Los Angeles. I believe in legal immigration. And when we're in a good economy, we're more able to loosen the reins on people from other nations coming here to work and make money. But when we're in a recession caused by a pandemic, the thing you don't do is bring in more people. Let me just put it in a way that you will understand. Let's say your refrigerator, fully stocked with food, is your economy. And your economy can barely feed the 5 people in the house. And then someone, your sister, your crazy sister comes in, or your crazy brother called Joe comes in and says, we have 4 more people who are going to live with us. And we can't do that. We don't have enough food. Oh, well, then you're evil. Are you going to give your portion? No, I'm not going to give my portion, but you're going to give your portion. And you're an evil motherfucker if you don't. So that's basically the immigration story during a recession is about. Joe Biden or anybody of his family are not going to take in any illegal immigrants into their house. And most people who vote liberals don't either. My family has. My mom brings in anybody. I don't know how many people live with us in our house. My mom was a true Christian. If you were down and out, you got a room. So, I could no longer walk around in my underwear. Never. Not that anybody wants to see that. But, of course they do. Sausage. Now, some school board members got caught on Zoom talking shit about parents who want their kids to go back to school because they don't know how to work Zoom. I don't know. So off with their head seems like what's happening right now. Call them down. Fire them from their position, whatever. But, come on. What do you think? This is all money play. Schools are open all over the nation, and they're doing fine. And the transmission rates are low. It is a statistical fact, right, as of right now, that it's more dangerous for kids to stay at home than not going to school. That depression is hitting children so hard. And frustrations are so high. The abuse of children are growing every day. It's better for them to be at school. It's better for their parents to start working. It's better that we have, for thousands and thousands of years, have not been a people who sat in a room and looked at a box. We're not made for that. We're made to toil with our mind or toil with our hands. And kids to go to school and learn. This is what we're made for. And now we're seeing the effects in our society. And some industries may not come back. And we have a union, especially in Los Angeles, that is playing games. I'll tell you the fix right now. We know that even the common cold is more dangerous for kids right now than COVID. So they ain't going to die from COVID any more than they're going to die from the flu. And we've always dealt with that. The teachers, of course they're at higher risk. So every teacher should get be dragged to the front of the line, get all their vaccinations, and then open up the schools. And if you don't want to do it, even after getting the vaccination, then your ass should be fired. And that's it. Your job, you are not more important than your job. It's the job that's more important. It's the job that must exist, not you. There's plenty of teachers. I tell you, I know quite a people who substitute who are willing to jump in to those positions, who teach just as good, if not better, than some teachers. That's a fact. I know teachers. I love teachers. And they're one of the most important people in our society. But let's get it straight. It ain't rocket science. It's not. It's a talent. For sure it's a talent. And that's one of the criticisms. There's a lot of people who are teachers that shouldn't be teachers because they don't have the talent. They don't have what it takes to engage. They don't have what it takes to inspire. You always hear from kids. I had that one teacher that inspired me to do more. What about the other 8? Nah, they didn't. It was that one that inspired me. Don't you want to hear from a school where every one of my teachers were phenomenal? Everyone were great at what they did. You don't hear that. You just don't hear that. And we should hear that. As taxpayers, we should hear that. And obviously, there's a lot of things that parents must do. I am constantly on my daughter. And my wife constantly emails practically her teacher every week. Say, is Scarlett paying attention? Is she engaged? Is she doing her homework? Is she turning it in? Her teacher expects that email every time. And she sends it back and tells us. And if Scarlett has not done that, my daughter, I'm talking about here, we have to have a talking. And in the limited world she has, we have to take things away until she starts to shape up. It's just that simple. You got to be engaged as parents. If you are a shitty parent, that is a high uphill climb for the teacher and for the kid. It just is. It just is. But let's get it straight. Even though not everybody can become a teacher, there's still a lot of people who can. And that's a fact. And what this is doing, it's exposing the union for what it is. It's taking advantage of COVID and it's controlling its teachers. And some of the teachers, I'm sure, are embarrassed that they haven't come back to school yet. And they know that the union's playing games, but they have to go along. That's part of being a part of union, that whatever the union goes, you sort of have to go along with. If you're going to protest or walk out, you got to do that as a union member. It just is. You have to follow the union line. It's a collective thinking for sure. And you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And there's some people who are, I'm sure there's teachers who feeling bad that they're a part of the problem. And they don't know what to do. They have to step out of the union. It's a very hard situation. I get it and I understand it. But as parents, we have to find alternatives if they are not willing to come back, even when the science says they should and can. That's simple, right? I'm not saying something too radical. At least I don't feel. Last but not least, Perseverance has landed on Mars. How nice. It is a historical day. Let me read a headline. A little bit of headline from the world of futurism. It is a historical day for the team at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The agency pulled off a nerve-wracking descent, landing its 5th robotic operating rover, Perseverance, on the surface of Mars. Mission Control confirms touchdown of the car-sized rover. Car-sized rover, I didn't know that. Around 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 3:56 to be more accurate. Minutes later, the world got its first glimpse of Perseverance saw when it was six-wheeled touch the rocky surface for the first time. Courtesy of the rover's hazard cameras, the system the rovers used to safely navigate the red planet, we got not just one bit of low-resolution images in black and white, but two. One was taking of the rocky surface in front of the rover, and another shows a view from behind. They're very low. When I first saw it, I was like, what the hell? What kind of cheap camera is this shit? I mean, people on flat earthers are going to go crazy with this. Low resolution. It's like, it's pretty shitty resolution, that's all I have to say. The images were taken close to the ground. The haze, it seems, in both was caused by the dust in which still hasn't settled after the rover touched down seconds before snapping the picture. The rear image shows one of the rover's wheels safely making contact with the ground. The front image shows off the rover's shadow as it basks in the sunlight following its 7 months journey. Yeah, so let's wait for tomorrow for better ones, but this is great that Curiosity, Perseverance has landed on Mars. So there was 3 missions to Mars that were all successful. One from China, one from United Arab Emirates, and one from the United States from NASA, and all successful. People are gearing up. A lot of good news is coming so far. The 2 months into 2021 and the missions that are going, we're all aces so far. Let me read you a couple more headlines. Let's see here. NASA is hunting alien civilizations by looking for their pollution. Just as pollution likes nitrogen dioxide and greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere are an indication of human activity, a team of NASA researchers are now looking for pollutants on other potentially inhabitable exoplanets as a new alien technosignature, meaning a sign of advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. That makes sense. I mean, there should be some lingering. This doesn't mean they have to be an advanced civilization. They could be burning off fuels. One of the most pollutant times in American history is between 1850 to 1950. You know, first 18 years, they were, even before that, most people lit their area at night through fire. And that polluted the air. Every hut, every group of people burned something to keep warm at night. So, there might be somebody in that stage. So that's very interesting. Let's see if that produces some results. And NASA recommends aggressive funding for nuclear power mission to Mars. After decades of faltering investments in nuclear propulsion, the report authors wrote that they're not convinced NASA will be prepared in time. Space nuclear propulsion technology shows great potential in facilitating the human exploration to Mars, says Bobby from Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And however, significant acceleration in the pace of technology maturation is required if NASA and its partners are to complete the mission within the stated timeline. But there is some room for hope. Jim Reuter from NASA says, he just said there's hope. But there's room for hope. Okay. So, yes, nuclear powered. Obviously, because you can't carry enough gas to take you to Mars, right? So you'll need some element that produces megas amounts of energy, like a nuclear reactor. Endless energy. As that thing decays over 1,000 a year, you can still pull energy from it. That uranium, or I don't know what they use now, more higher form of uranium, I'm pretty sure. That's how we heat up water. We heat up water in nuclear power plants through the nuclear fusion. It's so hot, the steam is so strong that it moves the gears at a high rate that you could ever burn with just a normal fire. And it keeps on going and going and going because that thing doesn't die out. It's not like something you can put out very easily. And we know that because of Chernobyl, and we know that because of Fukushima Daiichi. I don't think they have cooled down that reactor yet. The water is still trying to put it out. So that kind of technology, safely done, could shoot us to Mars and back. Because that nuclear fission that can happens for a long time, and it's a steady source of power. So that's good news. I believe in it. They should do that. They should put a power plant on Mars if they can. And as we terraform it, we can get green again. Actually, to make Mars happen, we're going to have to do what we shouldn't be doing to Earth. Greenhouse gases. So, let's get to it. So far, we are at the pace of 2026 to get to Mars. And the successful missions that are happening, it's just one step over another. One, as we blaze a trail forward to Mars, this year could be the most important year. Because if we can have success in this year, the gears of space exploration will be too hard to stop in the next year. But any failure this year can hold everything. In a sense, I'm glad the Biden administration is for space, but they're not for space like Donald Trump was for space. I think if you give them a good reason not to support it, they won't. That's what I think. They're not going to have the tenacity Donald Trump did. Like something went wrong with Donald Trump, and something went wrong with the space agency under Donald Trump, he would say, get back on your feet, try it again. I don't think the Biden administration would do that. Just my opinion. I could be 100% wrong, and I hope I am. Okay, people, that's all I have to say today. 1 hour coming up. Breathe hard. I don't know. I'm sort of holding my breath when I'm talking. Makes me pant a little bit. I don't like it. Gotta take big breaths. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a hurry to talk. And I've been talking for an hour straight. Who knew I had so much to say? And this has no bearing on whether it's important, the things I'm saying. I think they're important. But, hey, if you think what I say is important and you want to follow me on any of the social media platforms, you can type in James Salazar Media and I should come up in places like Pinterest, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the best. Yeah, please leave a review of this podcast. Where they leave reviews, please put on, please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that yet. Please, please, please. I appreciate that. And tell other people about it. I would appreciate that. And feedback is always welcome. Please put something in an email. Go to jamessalazarmedia@gmail.com, jamessalazarmedia@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, I will be more than happy to read them online and answer your questions. So, my friends, when the storm of life come against you and you find yourself on your knees, take a look at that storm and stand tall and say what my sensei Jack Byrne always says, give me your best shot. Strike the music.